Every journey leads home, even if you take a detour through the galaxy. Spacetale, a 2.5-dimensional game about a dog who goes on a space journey and visits inhospitable planets where lots of dangers and challenges await. But are these challenges worth getting through? In this review I discuss basic aspects of the game and how it's experienced on the Nintendo Switch. In reality, sending animals into space has been seen as an ethical dilemma. If you remember how the Russians sent the dog Laika to certain death in the name of science, you might see how it always have stirred emotions and create debate. In this game, the question is raised again. You play as a dog named Bia. She is sent into space for an unexplained reason. Now you have to follow her adventures and see if she manages to get home again. I'm not going to spoil what happens, but the journey revolves around the exploration of different planets and encounters with the most unlikely creatures. To be clear, this is not a 2 or 3-dimensional game, but rather something in between, a 2.5-dimensional game. This basically means the use of parallax scrolling. To get an experience of depth, you see several images at the same time that move slowly or quickly depending on the position of the layer. It's like a pseudo 3-dimensional effect, because what's really happening here is that the game is basically a 2D platformer, but the backgrounds can give a feeling of a 3-dimensional world. In this game, however, you find the effect somewhat messy. The developers have really gone all in and pushed loads of layers on top of each other. If I counted correctly, I get it to 9 layers at the same time. Sometimes it looks nice, but the choices of colors as a whole can give a scattered impression, as if it doesn't always match. But sometimes it also looks good. For example, in this desert where all layers interact in a unified way, it fits together well. But here it's problematic. The platforms you jump between are strongly reminiscent of the platforms in the background. Those are there purely as a graphic effect. It can be perceived as disturbing that you mix up what is in the foreground compared to the background. Since this is a platform game, there are basically no surprises. We've seen a lot before. The dog runs right or left, it can jump or go down ledges by pressing down on the B button, but the game's developers have created a couple of systems that make everything a little more interesting. You can switch between 3 different senses by pressing R. The air indicates where there are secrets. The nose shows the correct route, replacing the use of a map. The eye can reveal the enemy's visual range, which is useful for not being seen and staying hidden. Sometimes you also meet other characters. One can interact with them through a specific communication system. If you press the L button, you will see a menu with common dog commands. You can make the dog bark, roll, wag its tail, and so on. This system is used to create strong friendships, which are needed to cooperate with NPCs. But I think the system is underutilized. It is mainly at the beginning of the game that the dog commands are useful. Further into the game you use them less. Mostly through the game, one's senses are used to overcome various difficulties. I might think that it's a bit of a shame. It would have been more dynamic in terms of gameplay if you could use both the senses and the dog commands equally throughout the adventure. Now, unfortunately, that doesn't seem to be the case. But as a whole, the systems contribute to a certain uniqueness. It's more than just running around and jumping. The game revolves around 8 unique worlds, or levels if you will. Each world has its own unique challenges and quirks. In this world, one must avoid being discovered by a huge pig. If it smells the dog, it will bite you. Here you have to alternate between being a young dog, a mature dog, and an old dog. Depending on the age of the dog, you experience different characteristics, both positive and negative, but the dog's age plays a role in how a puzzle should be solved. In this world, Bobby the robot is used to hack computers, which is needed to open doors or other things to happen. And now to the burning question: do you see a pattern? At least I don't, and this is good in my opinion. Above all, the differences are what contributes to unpredictability. You rarely find out in advance how a task is to be solved, and you also have no experience from previous levels. The puzzles are noticeably different, so you're constantly challenged to learn how the dog works at the moment, which skills are available and how they should be used. Spacetale is a game that has high ambitions, maybe a little too high. It sometimes feels as if the game developers wanted to cram as much as possible into 8 different levels. It feels as if the game would have to be almost twice as big in order to take in everything that happens. Sometimes it becomes too much. There are too many mechanics and too much to learn in 2 short levels. The game needs to breathe a little, and sometimes there is just too much to do, like for example fiddling with time, using the powers of robots, using the dog's senses, communicating with NPCs by barking and wagging the tail, discover secrets, hide from scary robots, solve tricky puzzles, and much more. It's an ambitious attempt to keep platformers interesting, and sometimes it succeeds. But sometimes it becomes too much at once. But there is another problem in this game that I need to address. The controls are sometimes awkward to use, especially in some puzzles where you have to move objects. It can be tiresome that the precision is insensitive, like these green stones for example. You have to place them within a certain radius, but usually they roll away because of the slope. It takes the focus away from the task itself, which is to solve a particular puzzle. It can be perceived as annoying. I also experienced some lag from time to time, but it was in small doses and nothing that really interfered with the overall experience. There were also a few crashes. I don't know if it is because too much is going on at the same time. Moving objects, smoke and lightning animations, and all layers. There is a lot happening. Anyway, I got kicked out of the game. But there is an autosave feature, so you rarely need to replay very much. I can recommend Space Tale if you want an unpredictable platform game that also includes some exploration of environments, but I also find the controls sometimes feel clumsy to use. Feel free to subscribe to my channel. I review new games every week. Have a nice day. See ya!